Now, I guess the big question is how many buildings are we going to lose? And I have to say, I think we can expect to see 3 waves of demolition, really. So Sarah and Civil Defence and Sarah are obviously been really looking at dangerous buildings and getting those down and making the city safe again. After that, we're going to have a second wave. I've called it economic demolitions, where effectively the building owners and their insurers sit down and they look at the cost of repair and they look at the cost of replacement, and they're going to have some really difficult decisions to make about whether or not it's worth keeping a building and repairing it, or whether they should pull it down and start again. So this is likely to take some time, and then we're likely to have a kind of a third wave, a late wave. Some owners will be paralysed. They won't have adequate insurance. They won't. Some of them will be overseas and simply won't know what to do. So they'll kind of be stuck, and they'll be in a state of nothing will happen for quite some time. And we may well have to work with Sarah to kind of move some of those people along. And then we hope we don't see it, but it's quite possible we'll see court cases between landowners and insurers. So I guess it is going to be a long process. Now, I think you're all aware that in April this year, the national government passed the Canterbury Earthquake Recovery Act, which is great news. Now, effectively, it requires the council to develop a recovery plan for the CBD, and now it doesn't. It's not very specific about what should be in it, but it enables a very wide range of things. So any social, economic, cultural, or environmental matter, any particular infrastructure, work or activity. I mean, it's a huge range, and it can add, remove or change parts of the city plan. So the city plan is the regulatory document which controls what we can do on our land within the city. So there's a very wide range of possible powers that we'll have to, which will have to be used judiciously. Now, the council will be working through what we'd like to see happen, and we'll be obviously discussing it with the public and with affected communities. We have to hold at least one public hearing. So this is not the public hearing. This is the start of an engagement process, but we will have a formal public hearing where we come back and you have an opportunity to make formal submissions and to be heard by a panel. And we also have to talk to Sarah, that's the new government department, Environment Canterbury and Ngāi Tahu. We have to enable them to have input. In fact, we'd like to do more than that. We'd like to work with them in a spirit of partnership. The Act sets out a 9-month time frame. I think a lot of you have heard that. Sounds like a reasonable amount of time, but actually when you work backwards, it doesn't give us a lot of time. On one level it'll be very fast, but on another level we have to remember there are, the central city is, there are people out, who are going out of business now, and we really have to move on at a reasonable pace. So look, effectively we'll be engaging with the public, so running a process of discussions and forums and starting with this workshop, running up until mid-July. In August to September, we'll be running the formal hearings, the formal submissions and hearings. So we'll be doing a formal process and running the hearings, and then we're intending to give a draft plan to the minister, because the minister approves this, in the middle of December. So that's our time frame. We want to get this thing wrapped up and be able to pass that on. So that's a huge challenge. One of the things I wanted to talk about a little bit is kind of what the council can realistically deliver, because look, this process, actually the council can't do it by itself. We have to work together with the other agencies, with the public, with the private sector to try and to rebuild Christchurch. Now, I thought I'd use the analogy of a garden. So I guess a great analogy for the garden city. So if we think of Christchurch as a garden, what does the council provide? Well, the council provides quite a lot of the infrastructure under the streets, the garden irrigation, if you like, the irrigation system, the pipes under the ground. I mean, actually, look, there are private companies who provide, telecommunications things as well, so it's not quite as simple as that. But broadly speaking, the water, the sewage and the wastewater are provided by council. In fact, I think at times it behaved a little bit more like an irrigation system in the last few months than we would have liked. But certainly that underground network has never been so visible to us, I think, as it has in the last couple of months. Council also provides the paths, the garden paths, if you like, the patios, the spaces where people, meet and they mingle, the streets and the squares and the parks of city. That's, the council provides those generally. And the council provides some of the facilities that make a city, the art gallery, the libraries, the museum, some of the things that attract people to come and stay there. But look, if that was the garden that I said to you, come and visit Christchurch, I think you'd be pretty disappointed. Really, look, the flowers, the shrubs, most of the trees, they're provided by the private sector. They're built by the private, the movie theatres, the restaurants, the shops, the offices, the places where people go. They're delivered by private landowners and corporations investing in the city. And, the council can't do this by themselves. We have to, the private sector has to come on board to rebuild Christchurch. And in reality, look, until the public come back, until the people in the garden, the garden is not going to be alive. It's a beautiful picture, but until there are people in there enjoying it, So in a way, I guess, the point of that analogy was just to try and stress that, this is, we have to work together. The council can't do this by itself. We need, other people to, we need the whole spectrum of people to come on board. Look, how do we get back the Christchurch we want? How do we rebuild the Christchurch? Well, we can't rebuild it the way it was, but how do we rebuild a place that we love? We hope, look, the start of that process is to share an idea. Come and tell us what you want. Now, look, Christchurch people are pretty good at standing up and saying what they think. But actually, the challenge is we're going to have to listen to each other. We can't all have our own way. We can't all get what we want. We're going to have to find some way of getting to a consensus, to listening to each other and arriving at something that, the broad community is happy with. And that's going to be a big challenge for us, and one that I'm sure we'll rise up to. But I guess, we want you to share an idea, but we want you also to look around and listen to the other ideas. I guess, in a way, it's fantastic. We've got a minister, we've got a minister for the recovery of Canterbury. We've got an Act of Parliament. We've got a whole new government department. We've got the council is busy here. But actually, the future of the central city is in your hands and mine. It's in all of our hands. It's whether we choose to go back there. It's whether once it's open, do we choose to go back? Do we choose to spend our money there? Do we choose to meet people and go out to dinner there? Do we choose to work there? Do we choose to invest there? In a way, the future of Christchurch is not in anybody else's hands. It's in our hands. It's up to us as to whether it will thrive again, whether it will stand proud and be the centre of Christchurch again or not. Thank you. And look, I'd be happy to take some questions now.
Just so, can you turn the volume up on this a bit? Just so everyone can have the questions. Jenny is my runner with the mic, so just raise your hand if you've got a question and Jenny will service you.
I hear on the news radio 900 or more buildings to be demolished in the central city. A month ago, it was 180 to 200 buildings to be demolished in the central city. What is the real answer?
Look, thank you. I think the real answer is we can't tell you how many buildings will be demolished in the central city. Now, Sarah, the new government department, is responsible for demolitions, and I know they have a list of 180 critical buildings they're worried about. But even with those, it's possible to repair them, some of them, and it's going to be a decision about speed and cost. There will be much trickier decisions, for private landowners and their insurance companies as to how much it costs to repair the building and how much it costs to replace it, and how much their insurance is, and whether people will go back to that building once they've repaired it. The simple answer is we can't tell you how many buildings will be demolished yet.
Thank you. The insurance is the issue to me. It seems that if the insurance company won't insure us to build another building, or will put restrictions on the buildings we can build, isn't that going to determine what happens to Christchurch?
Again, I'm not sure I can answer that question definitively. My understanding is that there are ongoing investigations into the engineering and the feasibility of building, how strong we should build our buildings. The government is, I think, about to change the building codes for Christchurch. As far as I'm aware, that if buildings are built to code, insurance companies will insure them. That's my understanding, but yeah.
Thank you, Hugh, for a very good presentation. I'm just trying to understand, with your role as far as the City Council plan is concerned and the government legislation, what do you see the legal teeth being able to practically achieve? Are you looking at changing streets from a council viewpoint as opposed from a private viewpoint? What do you actually see possible with the legislation and the future needs and where the council is trying to go to?
Look, at the moment, the legislation empowers many things, but we also have to have good reason to use those powers, and I'm sure that the government will be keeping a close, and the minister will be using them judiciously. At the moment, I think my team, and I should stress that, look, this isn't me. There's about a team of people who are working on this. We're here to listen. I don't think we want to make up we haven't got fixed ideas at all, and I think one of the reassuring things for me is there's no shortage of good ideas. So really, we're here to kind of listen to what ideas people put forward. And there are people doing, there are people drawing plans. It'll be great to look at those and to draw on those. So at this stage, it's the early part of a conversation. Now we have said that if we think that perhaps 50% of the buildings in the CBD will go, that still leaves 50% of the buildings there, and we don't think we're going to alter the street pattern. So that would be a huge undertaking, and it would affect a lot of buildings, of good buildings that we can't afford to lose at the moment. We can consider changing the function of streets, so the way we use them, but we think the streets will remain where they are.
Hello? Hello. If we look, say, 3 or 4 years down the track, and we've lost, quite a few houses, down Papanui Road, when you're on the bus and you go past, there's an area there where the land is actually empty, but they've grassed it, which is lovely. Because some people might pull the building down, but they can't afford to build for quite a few years. Is there going to be legislation in place so that if we do have areas, big areas that are a lot of green, that people are going to keep the grass down, because that's part of our image as we're building? There's no use pulling all these buildings down and then have areas where there's piles of rubbish, piles of grass. We need to have that in legislation, that people have to keep it nice. And I think because it helps people get over things.
Look, I think that's a great idea. I think as part of the recovery plan for the central city, I would expect there to be a section on temporary activities. So where buildings have come down, what sort of uses and what sort of activities might happen on them. What that is, I can't tell you yet. But look, and if we put in grass and green areas, obviously they have to be maintained. So, but no, it's a great idea. Thank you.